Greetings, I'm Vani Manja, Country Managing Director and Head of Human Pharma for Boehringer Ingelheim in the UK and Ireland. As a privately owned company, we plan in the long term towards our mission of improving the lives of humans and animals and deliver on our purpose of transforming lives for generations. This ambition, this purpose comes with a deep focus towards collaboration, cross-sectoral collaborations, as well as a commitment to drive transformative change within the organization and across our collaborations to ultimately deliver strong patient outcomes and transformative population health impact. It's important that we drive this change within organizations. And to bring that conversation to reality, it's my great pleasure to introduce you to Amy Edmondson, professor at the Harvard Business School for Leadership and Management, who has done some groundbreaking work on transformative leadership, including The Fearless Organization, a book that I think has changed the thought process on how we think about psychological safety, as well as most recently, The Right Kind of Wrong, Learning to Fail Well. Amy, it's a pleasure to have you here to talk about such a contemporary matter in the complex and uncertain world we live in. So maybe let's start with a little bit of a discussion on how do we think about driving transformative change and what is the role of leaders in bringing us there?
First of all, it's an enormous privilege and honor to be here. It truly is, and I'm impressed by the work you're doing and particularly this collaboration across sectors, which is something near and dear to my heart and my research. So let me define transformative change as change that dramatically alters an organization's ability to serve its customers or serve its constituents. And that dramatic means not just incremental, right? It means that we really find ways to do things better, and this is hard, and it's utterly dependent on leadership. And the reason is, one way to think about leadership is that leadership is what's needed to help us do things that aren't natural or spontaneous, right? It is not natural or spontaneous to suddenly transform an organization. People are very good at doing what they already are doing, at staying in their routines, staying in their habits. And if you want to produce transformative change, you need leadership to first wake us up to the opportunities that exist, to second, truly invite people into the journey of creating this transformative change together, and third, be ever on the lookout for what we're getting right, what we're getting wrong, and how we need to alter it to keep making progress toward our goals.
Absolutely, absolutely. As a leader, personally, I have traversed the journey from a very hierarchical leadership role in my 20s in the Indian Army to an obligation to dissent as a management consultant, and now encouraging that empowerment that every person in the organization feels to dissent, to share their views, etc. And it is hard. Changing habits is hard. So what are your 1, 2, 3 pieces of guidance to leaders on how we can deliver on that expectation, on that commitment?
Well, first, we have to make it discussable that it's hard. I think many times change efforts fall down because they inadvertently create some notion that this is going to be easy. Or if not easy, just, oh, it's such a great idea, here we go, just get in line and do it. And I think we have to explain early on that this is hard. And why bother? Well, because it's worthwhile, because it's going to make a difference. And we're not going to be able to do it without everyone helping, if you were. So make it discussable. Have some general ideas. You have a theory of change, right? Some general ideas of some of the things that we need to do differently and better to get where we want to go, such as perhaps collaboration across silos, or the portion of what we do that's innovative or innovating versus sort of business as usual. Whatever the theory is, you have to have really done some homework to think through, what do we need to do in order to serve our world better? And then explain that. So you're saying it's going to be hard. You're saying here's how we see it. Here's what you need to help with. Here's what I think is in it for you. I mean, this really is an opportunity. You're inviting people into an opportunity to participate in something larger than themselves that makes a difference. Most of us are really hungry for that opportunity, but it has to be laid out there quite explicitly.
Absolutely. You talk a lot about the learning zone.
That's right.
That perfect balance of performance and psychological safety that gets an individual to work better. And so, as a leader, I often think about how do we get that balance of accountability that each of us and teams have in delivering that performance, and the empowerment to sometimes just assume and apologize later rather than seeking permissions first. How do we drive that balance of empowerment and accountability?
I'm not sure it's balance technically, because balance to me implies there's a spectrum, and over here is accountability, over here is empowerment, and we want to find the optimal zone. Whereas I think it's actually a both-and situation where we need both empowerment, and empowerment can roughly be defined as people's belief that they are free to do what they need to do to perform well, right? That they have discretion over their own actions in service of the goal, or that's consistent with the role that they have been asked to carry out. Accountability is a state of profound psychological ownership, right? That it's not, if I don't get caught not doing a good job, I'm not going to bother. I do a good job because I want to, like I own it. I have pride, I have a sense that it matters. Whatever, there's various factors, including purpose, including pride, that lead us to have more psychological accountability for the work we do. But an ideal job and an ideal employee and an ideal team, you have both. You have the freedom to do what you need to do, and you have the earnest desire to do it, and to be aware when it didn't work out the way you'd hoped of your contribution to that shortcoming. And aware and willing to say, hey, I came up short here, and this is what I learned. So that's accountability.
That's a beautiful notion. If we all have a shared purpose and each of us recognizes our part in making that shared purpose achievable, accomplished, I think that's wonderful. Yeah? And this shared purpose transcends an organization. As we talk about cross-sectoral collaboration, as we look at the challenge ahead of us for patient care in the UK with the NHS, it's important that industry, private sector, public sector, academia all come together across health and social sector, the voluntary sector, to think about that patient-centered need and solve for it. So what role does psychological safety play in delivering impact to its utmost in this cross-sectoral collaboration agenda?
Well, psychological safety, which I define as a belief that you can take interpersonal risks, like speaking up with dissenting views, or asking a question when you need help or don't know something, or admitting a mistake when something goes wrong. That's psychological safety, right? It's that sense of permission to do those hard things interpersonally. That plays an absolutely vital role in our ability to learn. But I can learn alone in an office with nobody watching me without psychological safety. But anytime I'm in a social setting, meaning a job setting where there are other people there, then I need psychological safety to engage in learning behaviors, because learning behaviors are risky. Absolutely. So the transformational change we're describing, the cross-sector collaboration that we're aspiring to do, are all dependent on psychological safety to allow them to thrive, to allow them to work as we intend.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Maybe one last pivot, moving to your most recent work, which is around failing well. How do we take those insights into addressing the immense challenge of the future, present and future, with the healthcare agenda in the UK?
Well, one thing about the future is we haven't been there yet. So that means it's novel, it's uncertain. That means that, like it or not, some things will go wrong, or they will go not the way we had hoped they would go. And so we have to come to terms with failure. We have to be less allergic to it and more willing to take its lessons as they come. So my book is dedicated to the idea that when we are at our best, we can prevent most preventable failures. Right? The things that we already know how to do, if we have the training or we have the willingness to ask for help when we need it, all those we should do, and we should encourage people to do well. But we also must have people experimenting, in other words, trying new things that we haven't tried before, because we're trying to make progress into the future. We cannot make progress into the future if we're absolutely risk averse. If we won't experiment, if we won't try anything new, then we won't be able to build the future we want. So the real goal from a leadership and really, frankly, individual contributor level is to do our best to distinguish between the areas where we know how to be excellent, let's do it, and then the areas where we are intent on innovating and must be willing to take the risk of potential failure in new territory, so long as those risks aren't any bigger than we can either afford or safely afford to do. So welcome the smart failures. Welcome the new knowledge that comes when our hypothesis is wrong. Quickly pivot, try something else, and hope that works instead.
Fabulous. Being part of the life sciences industry for a good while now, this idea of failing well truly resonates. Breakthrough therapies are not discovered without a constant expectations that 9 out of 10 times we will fail, but that 1 in 10 or sometimes 1 in 100 successes is what brings improvement to the patient health agenda. And that's why we are where we are, right?
Exactly. And I think in the life sciences, you have a deep appreciation for the fact that there's different contexts. In a lab, we expect 90% failure rate. In clinical trials, depends, anywhere between 25 to maybe 75% failure rate. And then, in sort of execution of our logistics and supply chains, maybe much less than 1% failure rate. So being clear about what kind of context this is, which by the way is a leadership task and responsibility, and then being welcoming to data of all kinds. Good news and bad news.
Indeed. Inspiring, thought-provoking, and really, as I said, current for the discussion at hand today on how we build towards a more sustainable healthcare ecosystem. Thank you very much, Amy, and this is a discussion we continue, I'm sure, in the years to come. Best wishes to you.
Thank you.